My name is Era, and I'm the host of the Tamil Creator Podcast. I chat with creators from all over the world to share their stories and discuss hot topics in a way that I hope inspires, educates, and entertains you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tamil Creator. I'm your host, Era. Today, I have a pretty unique guest. I'm not a really good chess player myself, but the person we have today, Shiyam Thavandiran, he's a mathematician working in the AI field, and he did an interesting thing where he took a year off from work to fully focus on chess and pursue the Grandmaster title. So, and actually, I thought he was still on his, I guess, year-long sabbatical. He just told me about a week ago he returned to what normal people call work and adjusting to that. So, Shyam, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Era. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I have a couple of family members that are like really good chess players. I don't think nowhere close to obviously what you are, but it's really it's gonna be. I feel like it's gonna be interesting personally for me to kind of learn about that world of, like, I don't know if it's called professional chess or just people that really pursue chess like vividly. Yeah. So I read a little bit about your story and kind of have an idea of this, but for the user, or not the user, but like the people listening, maybe tell them a bit about like how your childhood or like your formative like teenage years played a part in you, pursuing, this Grandmaster title in chess and taking a year off work, which, I think when I think of like telling my parents when I was younger, something like that, they would have thought it was, a bit crazy, and, you did it. So tell us about that.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so I was born and raised in Toronto, Scarborough specifically. And I just remember one of my earliest memories were watching I have one older brother, that's my only sibling, Nimilin, and my mom play like on the dining table. And I still have that image in my head of seeing them play. And I was very curious because they seemed to be really into it and I wanted to join them. So I also remember my brother teaching me how to pieces moved, and yeah, I just got interested like that. And yeah, the other thing is, I would say in general, my older brother influenced me a lot in terms of him being older than me. I know that he would be reading these books and I would get interested in reading them as well. So I think that helped me have some intellectual interest pretty early on.
Who's the better chess player? Even though I know you got the accolades, if you had to play best of the three, who wins?
I mean, he stopped playing a long time ago, like seriously, like competitively. And but yeah, like I've just because I've stuck with it, I would win now. But growing up, he would like beat me a lot. And I think that was one of the keys for me to get good very fast at a young age, because I had that stronger player in the household. And that's really one of the best ways to get better, is to play someone stronger than you. So yeah, that was a huge help in my development. And yeah, he was a really good chess player himself, but he was just more interested in other things at school.
Yeah, it's funny because I asked because if you hear a lot of stories of successful, like, people, like whether it's like in chess or sports, especially in basketball or like in sports specifically, you always hear about like having like four older siblings in that sport that always beat up on you. Like Reggie Miller said his sister always, beat him in one-on-one. I think even Michael Jordan said, I think his brother beat up on him. And it kind of, like you said, it's like most people, to get better at something, it's that 10,000 hour rule, but it's really not just playing anybody, but playing somebody that's much better at that same thing that you're trying to get better at. And if they happen to be your family or sibling, that's like a built-in advantage because you see them so often, and versus like having to go to a gym or like something more formal and kind of get those hours. So that's interesting that you kind of mentioned that.
For sure.
And you've had some like, pretty impressive accomplishments in the world of chess. So, you probably heard this so many times, told you, but like for the people listening, when you were 10, you were fourth in the World Youth Chess Championships. When you were 12, you were the youngest winner in the Canadian Junior Chess Championship. 2017, I think just after you finished school, you became an international chess master. So considering all of this, like you already had this track record of doing well in the world of chess, why did you pursue kind of, a more formal like job or career, when like you already had the success in chess? Like, why not just continue down this path versus exploring anything else?
There are cases of some people, especially I guess in Europe and I guess now in Asia, where especially in India, I guess, where people sort of become professional chess players at a very young age. But for me, it was always something I was always, like for example, they would be homeschooled, but for me, I was always in school, and chess was just something I would do on the side on the weekends and in the summers. And I guess it's just being a professional wasn't just not something I really considered. And yeah, I think it's good because chess is such a difficult game that if you give a lot of people give everything to it, and it doesn't always work out. And if you don't have anything to fall back on, that could be really challenging and difficult to handle.
What is a international like master? Like, what are all these like different titles? Like, what is the international master versus grandmaster?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's a governing organization of the world of chess called FIDE. It's the acronym FIDE, and they have a rating system and these regulations like on how to get these titles. So it's a very quantitative thing, and if you get the specific rating, as well as fulfill some requirements like these things called norms, you get the title. So for example, for international master, which is the title I have, you need a FIDE rating of 2400, and you also need 3 international master norms. And the norm is essentially in a 9-round international tournament, you perform at a 2450 level. So you have to get 3 of those norms. So you have to perform at that level 3 times, and overall your rating needs to be 2400. So I got that, as you said, in 2017. And then the Grandmaster level is more difficult. It's 2500 FIDE rating, and the Grandmaster norms are 2600 performance rating. So 150 rating points more in performances and 100 more rating in your actual FIDE rating. So yeah, that's how you get the Grandmaster title.
So how did this quest to become a grandmaster go? Like, were you close, or is it, do you think you'll get there? Maybe obviously if you didn't get it now, like sometime in the near future?
Yeah, so this quest, as you said, didn't go exactly how I wanted to. I really was expecting to get more progress towards the Grandmaster title, but yeah, for whatever reason, I think a big part of it was the pandemic, where I had almost about 2.5 years between tournaments, like over the board classical tournaments. There's online speed chess, but classical, where the games can go on for hours. That was something I hadn't done for 2.5 years. And when I got back into it this April, yeah, I think it just took me some time to get back into it. So I think underestimated that part. And yeah, I still need to get the 3 Grandmaster norms as well as the rating. So I, on paper, I didn't make much progress, but I think I traveled a lot and played a lot, talked to a lot of great players. I think I have a wealth of experience and knowledge from this year that I can use. And yeah, I'm going to keep sticking to it and doing what I did before the sabbatical, which was managing both my career and my passion in chess.
Yeah, I like the idea of the sabbatical, like whether it's like 3 months or a year. I think more people should do it. I feel like a lot of people previous to COVID, I think COVID kind of forced almost like a sabbatical type thinking for people. But I think a sabbatical is great in the sense that it kind of just removes you from your normal routine. And like you had this 1 year of compressed experience, like you said, traveling, talking to other people that all they do is, play chess seriously, just as you do. So like that 1 year is kind of like, the dog years of like, you got like 7 years of what would have been like if you did like a normal like job, and like it would have taken you, I think, 7 years to kind of get that kind of experience that you just did in 1 year. How did you make that decision? Like, who was involved? Like, was it like a spontaneous thing, or was it like something you thought about? And you being a chess player, I'm pretty sure it's thought out, but I'll just ask you anyways.
Yes, that's a good question. So I think, as I was saying, like even before the sabbatical, I was balancing both my career and chess. And I think that once the pandemic hit and I saw that everything just got shut down, the world can just change in an instant. Like things could just stop. A lot of people were dying, and yeah, I just had this idea that life is short and you got to do these things and not put them off. And so yeah, like I just sort of celebrated 5 years at work, and I think someone at work actually was the one that mentioned, oh, there's this sabbatical program that is available for people that have done 5 years of service. So that's when I think the idea started forming, and like I think within a few months I talked to my manager, and everyone was supportive of it. So they knew I was into chess, and they were following my results whenever I would play in tournaments. So yeah, I just got a lot of support, and I got the best wishes for it.
And was this like a paid sabbatical, unpaid?
Unpaid.
Got it. So how did you plan for it financially, knowing that you're going to take a year off? I mean, maybe you would have won some money playing professionally as well, but like, how did you plan for that financially? This episode is sponsored by nobody. That's right, nobody. So if you could be kind enough to hit that subscribe button, that would mean a lot to me.
Yeah, I think I just because I was working for these 5 years, I was able to build up savings. So I wasn't saving for a sabbatical in particular, but I just had it, and so I was able to use that for the traveling and the accommodations for tournaments. Because yeah, playing chess can be pretty expensive for sure.
What was your like best result?
Yeah, so I think there were a couple of highlights. So one, in terms of as a player, I played this tournament in Italy about like 5 weeks ago, in North Italy. This was part of a 2-month trip I did. Like I left Canada like August 30th, and I got back October 31st. So I was just on the road for 2 months, played 5 tournaments in a row. Of course, I had breaks in between where I got to do some sightseeing, and I've never done something like that. So that was really exciting. But this third of the 5 tournaments went really well. I finished in second place, and this was a tournament that had players from all over the world, and there were grandmasters playing. I actually beat the top seeded grandmaster in the field, and I also played a really nice game that an Italian newspaper really liked, and they actually published part of the game, like the final combination that won me the game. So that was just really cool, like just people appreciating the art of quality chess. But yeah, so that tournament, I think I finished second, and I think if a couple of things went my way, I could have even finished first. So that was a big that gave me a big boost in confidence. And then the other thing, the other highlight was the Chess Federation of Canada. I think partly because they knew I was doing the sabbatical, they invited me to be the captain of the Canadian women's team at the Chess Olympiad in Chennai, India. So the Chess Olympiad is probably the biggest chess event. It happens every 2 years, and every country sends their best players. So that was like an amazing experience where I got to even meet Magnus Carlsen. So I hung out with him a couple of times. I watched him play. Magnus Carlsen is a world champion, and some people say he's arguably the best player ever. And not just him, but just all the stars in chess were there. So that was like that experience alone almost made the whole sabbatical worth it.
Did Magnus know who you were before you got there?
No. I think I'm not like he's like yeah, I'm just not at that level, at the top level. But yeah, I have a friend in chess who's actually, yeah, he's the #1 player in Canada right now. He was the top board in Canada, Eric Hansen. So he sort of invited me a couple of times to hang out, and yeah, that was pretty cool.
You said you beat like a grandmaster. So like how I'm thinking of like, other sports like NCAA or things like that. You beat like better competition, you move up the rankings. Did that, you beating a grandmaster, like impact your rankings at all? Because you said you didn't make that much headway to becoming a grandmaster. So maybe it's just like quantitatively hard for me to picture like what you need, or like what kind of performance helps you move up that ranks to kind of get to the grandmaster ranking. Because you kind of mentioned a bunch of numbers, but like from like a like a step by step, if I'm like someone listening to this that's like loving chess and like wanting to kind of build themselves up like you kind of did, like what's like a strategy for them to increase or improve their ranking?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Like so I gained rating points for that win, and my performance rating for beating him is quite high, but that's just one game. So to get the norm, you need to perform over a nine game span, and then you also need your opponents to have a high average rating. So there's also luck involved in that. You need to get good pairings, and you need to play players that have a high rating that allows you to perform at that high 2600 level. So yeah, some of the players I played in that tournament were not like, they were obviously not grandmasters, and their ratings just didn't allow me to get that performance. And then yeah, you can lose rating as well if you lose a game. So for the games I lost, sometimes I would play someone that was lower rated, and if I would even make a draw, you would lose rating for that. Yeah, so it's you can lose rating as well.
So I think I read somewhere that there's only about like 1,500 grandmasters and in the world, I believe. So
That's right.
how many international masters are there?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, but I think even at the international master, and in chess we use these acronyms, so IM and GM. At the IM level, I think it's still like probably like 99.9% of chess players in the world. Like it's still like at a very,
You're in the
I don't
top
know
1%?
yeah, for sure, of like chess players in the world. So it's still a pretty exclusive club, and yeah, I just want that extra bit to get into the GM class too.
I mean, grandmaster sounds amazing. Who wouldn't want that? Yeah. How did your family take your decision to kind of, pause work for a year and, go on this pursuit?
Yeah, I think they were pretty supportive. So like I was living on my own in Toronto, but I figured that for the year I would be traveling a lot. So I moved out and I moved back in with them. And so that was of course a huge help, like financially. And I should also add though that because of the pandemic, I didn't get to travel and play as much as I wanted to. So the sabbatical started in November, and then in April is when I played my first tournament. So I think ideally I would have been able to get more tournaments in and more traveling in, at least more distributed throughout the year, instead of trying to like these 5 tournaments were good, but at some point you want to analyze your games and learn from them. But yeah, overall they know how much passion I have for chess, and like before I would talk about taking a year off after school, or I've talked about things like this before, but yeah, so they fully understood and supported me.
Are there plans to do something like this maybe on a shorter scale in the future, like these bursts of kind of focused attention on chess to kind of get to your ultimate grandmaster goal?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I think right now my priority is like to get back into the work routine and catch up on everything that was done with my team. And also like I played so much chess this year and learned so much. I think I need some time to like reflect. And then I also think what I did before worked well. It actually worked pretty well. Like I was playing, like studying in my free time, and then during vacation days I would go to a tournament and I would do pretty well. I think that could work as well, because I think when you do have these like I love that I did this sabbatical, and I think I could do something like that, as you said, on a shorter scale possibly in the future. But I think that there's also something nice about you play like you don't put as much pressure on yourself and you just play for fun. And somehow I think it could also even help your results when you don't have that like added pressure that this is the only thing you're focusing on, and if it doesn't go well, it's a failure.
I don't know if the analogy is similar, but when when you're kind of reading a book to kind of complete a book, like some people are like, let's read a book a week or whatever it is. I feel like you don't retain as much knowledge as I feel like when I read books, when like it was like maybe a few pages a day, and I kind of got to think about it or process those pages I read, I actually internalized the knowledge I got from the book, and so it was actually useful. And I feel like maybe with chess, the way you just described it is, if you're just constantly playing all the time and it's like you don't really have the time to reflect and do other things to kind of put your mind in a different frame of mind, you're always in that chess frame versus like, oh, I'm doing work or I'm doing life, and then you come back to chess with like a fresh perspective. Maybe that it seems like it improves your performance having other things to think about, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like, and the other thing I should add though is like everyone is different. Some
Yeah.
people really do enjoy playing nonstop, and it could be that it could have worked for me, but just for whatever reason, my results when I was working full time were actually better in some ways than the sabbatical. So that's just something I'm considering. But yeah, I think there's definitely benefits to both.
How do you prepare for tournaments? When I go play like I like playing poker, that's like one of the things I enjoy. I know there's people that do prepare to play in poker tournaments, like reading things or like studying certain patterns, etc. How do you prepare for like a chess tournament? Did you know that every time you left a 5 out of 5 review for this podcast, a Tamil parent lets their child pursue a career in the creative arts? Okay, that's probably not true, but if there's a chance that it is, do you really want to jinx it? Leave a review. Do it for the young creative in you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of people are surprised by how much like theory and knowledge there is on the game of chess and how much preparation is required, especially at the level that I'm trying to get to at the grandmaster level. There's so in terms of preparation, a big part of the preparation, it has to do with the opening of how you start the game, because that's something you can really try to anticipate and control. And there's still, of course, so many openings just because of the like combinatorics of chess. It's a ton of work, but the more you get covered, the more you have covered. It's almost like the analogy could be like the serve in tennis. It could be a weapon if you really have a strong serve, and similarly in chess, if you have strong openings, that can really put you in a good position to score points. But the opening is just sort of, I would say that's sort of the scientific aspect where you do a lot of research, you look at a lot of different things, and you come to some conclusions. Then you probably have to memorize it for the game. I'll also add that in chess tournaments, you know your opponent usually the night before the game. Usually tournaments have one game a day that can go for several hours, and you know in advance who you're going to play. Now, every game that you play is usually entered into this online database that everyone has access to. So, for example, if I in the first round play a certain opening, usually it gets broadcasted live, and my future opponent in the same tournament will check that game. You already have a decision to make where if you want to repeat the opening you played, which you're more familiar with, or try to change it up to surprise your opponent because you don't want them to just prepare that opening. So there's a lot of psychological battle and preparation decisions that go into chess, and all that is just about the opening. And then once the opening ends, you're on your own, and this is where sort of your understanding, your chess understanding, your calculation skills, your intuition as a player, this is where it has to shine. And so for this, you can train it through puzzles and exercises that you solve before the tournament. So yeah, there's in short, I would say chess is very complex. There's also the physical aspect where, because you're playing these long games for several days in a row, people would be surprised to think that chess requires physical preparation, but a strong body is a strong mind. So people that are fit or have just good stamina and energy will play better and perform better than someone that doesn't go to the gym or exercise at all. So in short, yeah, chess is very complex. There's a lot of different aspects to performing well.
When you're playing in chess tournaments, and for example, you won or you beat the grandmaster and you won second, is there like prize money in these tournaments, or does it depend on the type of tournament and who else is playing and how many people are kind of playing in that tournament?
Yeah, there is prize money. So I think but it's not a lot. Like I think for that one I got 500 euros. And I think first prize was 700 euros. But I think one thing I'll add is that for grandmasters, and the person that won first was a grandmaster, wasn't the grandmaster I beat, it was a different grandmaster. They usually get these things called conditions where tournament organizers pay for their hotel and give them some pocket money to help with their airfare or whatever travel, or it's called an appearance fee. So they get these conditions, so it really makes sense for them financially to play. They're not like, if they win the tournament, they're going to actually make some money. For international masters, we usually get free entry, and then players that don't have these titles pay some entry to play in the tournament. So there is prize money in playing, but it's sometimes not a lot.
Like, I guess there's only a very small percentage, like the Magnuses of the world, that they're making some serious money playing chess because people want them to show up, and like they've won a lot of tournaments and sponsorships probably.
Yeah. I think, speaking of Magnus, I think I watched this interview where they were talking about professionalism in chess. And I think he said something like, you don't have to go very far down the list before players have to start coaching and doing other things to make money. Like they can't just get by purely playing.
God, have you ever thought of that, like coaching other players, or even yourself getting a coach to add to your repertoire of things to train or prepare for tournaments?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I've had coaches my whole life. Like sometimes I haven't had coaches, but starting out, I definitely had a coach. Um, and I was working with the coach during the sabbatical year too, Kevin Spraggett, who's like a Canadian legend. He used to be #1 player in Canada and went really far into the World Championship cycle. So I'm very lucky to have him mentoring me. On my side, I think I have coached players before, but it's not something uh, I did like very selectively, like only a handful of players that reached out to me. But this Olympiad experience, I got to do I was the captain where I decided sort of the board order as well as who, like there's 5 players, there's supposed to be 5 players and there's 4 boards. So you choose who sits in each match. But then also informally, I was helping them with preparation and giving them some feedback. So that experience was pretty good. So I think that definitely piqued my interest in doing some coaching in the future.
That's awesome. Do you think there's been like I don't know, maybe it's like from my perspective being outside of like that world that you're kind of embedded in, but I feel like there's been a huge revival in the terms of attention being paid to chess. And I think, you know, the Netflix effect is real with the Queen's Gambit. Do you think that's part of it, or do you think there's other reasons that you might be aware of why there's kind of, at least from my perspective, or like someone like me, this revival in like, you know, chess in terms of like people playing and the attention provided to it?
Yeah, I think for sure the Queen Gambit caused like a huge chess boom. It was a great series, but I think it even started a bit before that. Just with the pandemic, people were inside all the time, and then there's a lot of, I would say, Twitch streaming. That's like a platform where people live stream. It's usually for esports and gaming, but chess started to become popular there. That started building the momentum, and then the Queen's Gambit just sort of caused this huge chess boom. Yeah, I would say it was like a perfect storm of the pandemic and this amazing TV series that just went viral.
And we kind of talked about it, I guess, via email. But speaking of like Magnus and like others, like there's been like a rise, or at least people or the media talking about this rise in cheating in the world of chess. And I didn't even know it was possible. But I guess there's like, I guess, potentially complex ways of communicating what moves to make using machine learning or like I guess AI, to assist in kind of making moves. Has this happened before? Like it seemed like I've never heard of like people cheating in chess, and or is this because of the level of fame of the people that were involved in the cheating scandals?
Yeah, so I think it definitely caught everyone by surprise. Like there have been cheating scandals or cheating accusations in chess before, but you said it never really made it to the news. As you said, I think a big part of it was just the Magnus Carlsen was involved. So yeah, everything about it, again, I guess like the Queen's Gambit was just like a perfect storm of like this, high profile like superstar withdrew from the tournament in a very dramatic fashion. So yeah, maybe the listeners don't know, but there was this sort of chess tournament, and the world champion Magnus Carlsen lost a game to this guy named Hans Niemann, who I've actually played 3 times, like many years ago. So I actually know him.
How did you do?
I actually beat him twice, and
Oh
I
wow.
lost him once. But this was like when he was very young, so I was like higher rated than him. Then now he's basically a super grandmaster, so he's like 2,700.
Wait, there's a super grandmaster?
Yeah, that's like an unofficial. It's like an unofficial title, but So, like I said, grandmasters need a 2,500 rating, but informally we call grandmasters with 2,700 and above super grandmaster. So Magnus Carlsen's like 2,850. So he's
So
like,
is he a super grandmaster?
yeah, it's like super saiyan grandmaster or something. But yeah, so there's the rating can distinguish between grandmasters. But yeah, so Magnus lost to Hans Niemann, and he was strongly suspicious of him cheating. So he actually withdrew from the tournament. This was round 3 of I think 9, and so after the 3rd round, he just said he's not going to play anymore. I mean, I'm sure you can read more about it. You probably maybe even heard about it because it was all over the news. Probably because of this. You probably heard about the anal beads
Yeah.
accusation, because it was funny because someone at work was asking me about it today, and he just couldn't stop laughing. So I found like a lot of people found it funny, and I think that's why it went viral as well, just because this contrast of like scholarly chess players and then accusations of anal beads and cheating definitely had the talk show hosts all over it. So
That's ripe for media for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just clarify though that I don't think anyone actually used that method. I think it started as a joke, as a conspiracy theory. People ran with it, but I don't think, as far as I know, that's never been used before. And I don't think anyone seriously believes in the chess world, seriously believes that that was the method. But
We
yeah,
like to believe it.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it made for a good joke. But yeah, I think as you said, just the high profile people involved, as well as the dramatic manner of how he left, and finally like these viral jokes just caused it to go viral.
I've been to this is like a random question. I meant to ask it earlier actually, but what's with your handle Houdinovic? Houdinovic? Is that a combination of Houdini and something else, or is that like an actual person's name?
No, for sure. Yeah, you nailed it. It's a combination of so on these
Djokovic
online.
and Djokovic and
Oh no,
Houdini?
no, not
Ah,
like a real person, but yeah, just to clear, like back up and explain, like on online chess is very popular, and everyone usually has. I mean, you have to have some kind of handle that you log in on and play as. So when I created the account, I wanted to be anonymous at first, so I didn't just use my name. I came up with the name Houdinovic because at the time, I think I made the account in 2013, which at the time there was a chess engine that was very popular called Houdini. And speaking of cheating, I've been accused of cheating online just because I guess people couldn't believe I played that well. And I sort of anticipated that sometimes people would accuse me of playing like a computer. And the Ovich part is sort of my paying homage to the Eastern European influence in chess. So I love the history of chess, reading about chess players in the 20th century. And so Houdinovic is sort of like the personification of like a chess engine. And then also there's just the final like the play, which was like sometimes I'm able to like escape like really bad positions. So kind of like a triple entendre that I just put together, and some people liked it. Yeah, I used to have a name called Senator Truth on a different server, which people really loved. I know that like even years later, like decades late, like a decade later, people would still remember that handle, Senator Truth. So I kind of sometimes want to make an account under that old handle as well, just because it sort of has a nice ring to it.
what's been like a failure or learning lesson you've experienced in the last 3 to 5 years, and like what did you learn from that experience? Money can be hard to come by, but here's a $100 opportunity for you. Join my free newsletter for free exclusive content and a free chance to win $100 when I hold special draws. Did I mention that it's free?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, the sabbatical didn't go. It was a great experience, but it didn't go exactly how I wanted results wise. So in terms of what to learn from it, I think, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm still trying to process what happened, but maybe I could reach out to more people. Like I think it was during the tournaments where I would play, where I would get some different perspectives on how to go about things. I think maybe not having such a be so rigid in what I planned and how I was thinking, and maybe try to get different perspectives. Of course, that wasn't easy. It was sort of like convenient for me to be at these tournaments and talk to some of these like grandmasters and top level players. But yeah, I think that's one thing, which is just being maybe open to the idea that you could be wrong, or maybe also maybe just miscalculated, like thinking that grandmaster could be done in 1 year was maybe too ambitious, and I probably could have. I guess there's not too much harm in setting the goal high, but also I could have, yeah, talked to more people about, what I can try to accomplish in this year. What would be a good strategy to go about it instead of, trying to plan everything myself.
What would you tell your 16-year-old self if you had a chance to go back in a time machine and give advice?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't. I actually wouldn't. I don't really know too much what I could say. I know my 16-year-old self tried my best, or tried his best, and yeah, it's really hard to give advice. Like it was, I just know that. Yeah, maybe I can flip it back onto you. Give me some inspiration. What would you give your? What would you tell your
16-year-old
16?
self?
Yeah.
I think stop trying to control things, I guess. Control is kind of illusion. Like, I mean, there's certain things you can control, which is how you react to things. No matter how well you plan, just, plan for the worst and hope for the best. I think that's what I would probably tell myself. I think I sweated the small stuff a lot.
Yeah, interesting. I think for me it's difficult to answer because I feel that I wasn't like I was more like carefree. I feel like at 16 you're not really that ambitious. Like you're just living life. Like you're not I guess I'm not so like I wasn't really trying to get things done. I was just going with the flow at the time. But yeah, I like your answer. Just not controlling things.
Maybe you can steal it. And I guess looking forward, in terms of like your personal legacy, like how do you want to be remembered by friends and family?
Yeah, that's a great question. These are the kind of questions you don't get every day. It's just only on this podcast where I can think about something like this.
I've been told the podcast is a mix of, good conversation and therapy,
For sure. For sure. Um, yeah, definitely. I just want to be remembered as someone that, wants the best for people. Like I think, yeah, maybe as a chess player, I can be a very competitive person and I want to win and be right. Maybe sometimes I would hide the fact that underneath all that, like I just want the best for everyone. And in terms of yeah, like for me, I was just trying to make people's life better and brighter, and yeah, just try to uplift people around me.
Well, that's a good way to kind of segue into the final part of the podcast. It's a speed round I like to call creator confessions. I'm going to say a bunch of statements and you're going to give me the first answer that pops to mind. Ready?
Yeah, sounds good.
Favorite Tamil food?
Oh wow. Yeah, because I had like 5 different foods that went through my mind. I couldn't pick. Favorite Tamil food. Wow. Yeah, sorry, I just like I'm trying to decide between like puttu and idiyappam. I'll go with puttu. I had it today. It's actually pretty unique food with the coconut and everything.
Something that scares you,
Something that scares me, death.
insecurity that you have.
Yeah, these are tough questions. Sorry. Insecurity I have, yeah, I guess nothing comes to mind for the moment. Maybe I'm not so insecure.
Favorite TV show you're watching?
So I really like the show The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. It was on Amazon Prime, a Prime Video, and yeah, I like that show just because it's sort of similar in terms of chess, where yeah, it's like someone ambitious trying to make something happen, and just entertaining show.
A place you're itching to travel to?
South Africa. I haven't been to Africa, and I want to try to hit that continent.
Fellow Tamil creator you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, so I think actually, yeah, I was actually listening to your podcast a lot during the pandemic, and I remember the podcast with Jody, the
Yes.
painter. I
Yes.
remember she mentioned that she was into chess. So I remember when I heard that, I thought that was pretty cool. Where yeah, she gave a big shout out to chess, so I thought that's a good person to shout out to, and it was just an inspiring podcast.
Favorite childhood memory?
Favorite childhood memory, playing basketball. I love playing basketball as a kid, and yeah, just I was on a couple of school teams as well, so that was always a good time.
So hypothetically, if you had a chance to either be Magnus or LeBron, who would you want to be?
If I had to be someone,
I mean, you like basketball, you obviously love chess. So
yeah,
if it was like a A or B, it's like you either get to be Magnus or you get to be LeBron.
yeah. I mean, I don't like the idea of just being someone, but I guess like
You got to choose.
just
Somebody's putting a gun to your head. Like,
Yeah, but Magnus, yeah, I think I would be able to play that role better.
something you like to do for fun outside of work, and this does not include chess.
Yeah, that's a good question. Outside of work, yeah, I guess I just love sports. So in the past year or so, I've been playing a lot of tennis. So tennis is something I've got into.
Favorite movie of all time?
I like Gattaca. If you ever heard of that movie,
No.
it's yeah, I guess it's also a movie by someone ambitious that wants to go to space, and yeah, it's a pretty inspiring movie.
Something you've purchased that you splurged money on in the last few years, but you have no regret about it.
That's a good question. Yeah, I think maybe something I'll get back into, but I splurged money on a personal trainer. I've done it a couple of times. And yeah, it's expensive, but I'm a big believer in investing in yourself. I feel like you can't really go wrong with that. So it might be something I do again in the future.
I agree. Pet peeve.
Pet peeve. Yeah, I think people that are like inauthentic or aren't honest.
If you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, a regret that you would have.
Yeah, maybe it's a good thing I did the sabbatical, because I would really, maybe if I didn't do a sabbatical, I would have had a regret of not trying harder in chess. But yeah, I don't really have too many regrets that can be, yeah, I wouldn't say I have too many regrets.
A celebrity whose life you'd want to experience for one day.
It's a good question. I don't know. I think the first name that came to mind was The Weeknd. I think it's not so much the experience. Yeah, just to see how he goes about making the music, the awesome music he makes.
Book you've read or a podcast you've listened to that's really had an impact on you?
A book I've read. Oh, so I like this. Yeah, during the pandemic, I would go on these long walks, and I listened to a lot of your podcasts, and then I would also I listened to the audiobook by 50 Cent. It was called Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. So I guess I actually nails both, right? It's kind of a podcast and a book, but it was really inspiring. Just his, sharing some interesting stories and his wisdom. That was pretty inspiring.
You're like a unique chess player. You play basketball, you invest in personal training, you listen to 50 Cent audiobooks.
Yeah, that's a Scarborough,
You're you're
Scarborough
you're
chess
like
player.
you're a Scarborough eclectic, chess player.
Yeah,
Makes
I
sense.
know. I remember my friend, a good friend, told me when he thinks of me, he thinks of basketball and chess or something like that. So that was pretty cool. I took that as a compliment.
A belief, behavior, or habit that's improved your life.
I think yeah, going back to, I mentioned this earlier, I was really competitive, and sometimes I would even like I wouldn't even care about rubbing people the wrong way if I wanted to win, or if I was so competitive about whatever. I think something that's really helped me is especially during the sabbatical was just trying to, and I wasn't trying to do it for like a specific gain or like to, it was just I really just try to have good relationships with people, just for the sake of that, like enjoying friendship with people. And I think that opened a lot more doors. And yeah, I think that's something I want to continue going forward, is trying to really put the friendship and relationship ahead of other things, like ahead of being right or whatever
So,
it could be.
so have you lost or like strained relationships as a result of your competitiveness? Is that why you say that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think it's not something that wasn't undone, but I definitely, there were obviously, like, even if it wasn't like chess related, it was just like board game or whatever, just temporarily, just I guess you can say it put a strain, but nothing too serious. But as you get older, and not with people well, but even as different people, you want to always maintain good friendships and relationships.
No, the reason I ask is like I feel like I'm like that, where when I get competitive, it's like sometimes I like in the moment, like this is before, like you said, as you get older, you get wiser. You don't think about, the long-term impacts. The game theory, like, if you just have short-term thinking, like you don't like benefit in the long run. And I definitely, as you said, that it resonated with me, which is why I asked.
Cool.
What's a piece of advice that you would give to your fellow Tamil, creators out there?
I think the most important thing is to have fun, like be happy, love what you do. I think that's something I'm gonna focus on for my chess. I think as I think of how I got good in chess, it wasn't like really trying to get good. I just loved playing and loved learning, and it just happened on its own. Of course, I think you need discipline, and that's important too. But I would say that yeah, and I think it's funny that I'm giving advice, but that's the sort of the thing that I'm trying to tell myself, is to reconnect with the game, especially if you're very ambitious at doing something. Maybe things can get tough, but I guess it's the idea to go back to why you started it, what got you into it, and reconnect with that.
That's awesome. Well, that's kind of a good way to end off the podcast, Sham. For those of the people listening, and they've been inspired by the story. There's a future chess grandmaster out there. What's the best way for someone to reach out and connect with you?
Yes, good question. So I'm not so active, but I think I want to be more active in the future. But it's you can reach me on Instagram or Twitter, which is my handle is my full name. I was able to get it. It's Shyamalan. So Shiyamalen. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me on there.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you kind of jumping on the podcast and sharing your insights. I'm glad to hear you were hopefully still a listener of the podcast as well. And now you're a guest to complete the cycle.
Yeah, I remember I was telling myself when I was listening to your podcast, like, if I ever get invited, it means I'm doing something right. So thanks for the honor.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on. And, for everyone listening, appreciate you guys listening as always. On to the next episode.